Hey everybody, Chomsky here. Just want to make a quick video on Raphael. Yeah, because we got that 10x for him. 10x? I believe it's a 10x. Yeah, and we got the one and one going. So there's going to be a few people that have Raphael. So we'll just dig into it. Yeah. Um, this is my first I when I did the turtle video a bit ago, I I built them out in what is this merciless a 9-piece merciless, and to be honest, like that works for me, but it may not work for everybody else. So just my thoughts on him. I don't think he's really that viable by himself. If you have Michelangelo and Donatello and Leo, awesome. That dude, I think Raffi's going to be really good by himself. Not so much. Um, the only reason why I think he would be okay with or let's say about a B plus of a hero is from those multi ally attacks, you know, and maybe I should go through his kit. Let me speed run through this. Name one that hits twice. You want him going last. This way, on those ally attacks, he could do that block revive, because you want him hitting the dudes last. So leader, um, usually speed aura, and then your two, and then he's pulling up the rear. So this way he attacks last. Each critical hit fills his turn meter by 10%. Awesome, love it. Give me more of this plarium, and 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 we could talk. But I really just like those A1 like turn meter fills. Love them. A2, attacking all enemies. He's ignoring shield and block damage if he's under a berserk. If he's not under a berserk, then that damage inflicted against enemies specifically under shields is increased by 50%. Additionally, each critical hit fills his turn meter by 10%. The A3, attacking one enemy 3 times. Each hit will ignore 20% of the target's defense. Places a perfect veil and an unkillable on him if that target is killed. If the target survives, places a berserk debuff on him for 2 turns instead. This debuff cannot be resisted or blocked. Okay, cool. Berserk. Oh, hang on. Passive. He's going to join. Additionally, places a berserk debuff on this champion for 1 turn when any champion dies. Has a 20% chance of granting an extra turn when attacking under berserk. Okay, so what does berserk do? Um, that would be cool to know. We see this in Minnow. Essentially, it's they get more damage, but they also deal more damage. Come on, come on. If I had this queued up, that'd have been great. Increases damage inflicted and damage received by 50%. So, cool skill to have on a Sun Wukong when they could revive themselves. Not a cool skill to have when, if he's in a turtle team, there's going to be nobody reviving him. There's going to be a whole lot of sustainability with Leo and Donatello with the continuous heals, but nobody specifically to pick him up. So, hella dangerous, depending on how you build him. So here, I thought of a merciless setup. I don't have the best merciless like accessories, but I wanted to maintain the set because I wanted that extra turn, that speed and crit damage. Ideally, ignoring as much defense as possible is always ideal for anybody that does damage or that you have queued up to do damage. Here in this build, um, he's not fully mastered, so he's not mastered at all. So he's not crit cap, but he would be. And then more crit damage. You know, 295 crit damage is fine. Or 285, sorry, because it's only 15. No accuracy, because he doesn't need it. Attack is really low, and the HP it's shamelessly low as well. He's only a level 31. I'm slowly but surely working on champ training with him and other things, but it's fine. He's not at top of the priority list. But I do want to point out I don't care too much about speed with Raphael. And the reason being is if I have everybody supercharging, going nuts, and doing attacks, he's joining and he's doing, I mean, potentially, he is blocking revive. So the way that I had it with my turtle team was Donatello first, then Leo, and then Michelangelo, and then Raphael. What's nice about that is I have potentially three champs that's going to make him go. Uh, as long as they're attacking, and those three champs, that's 6 times that he's going to be attacking an enemy, and then each time that critical hit that he has, it's going to fill up his turn meter by 10%. So those 6 times potentially, I'm looking at a 60% turn meter fill. It's not exact, but let's just call it that. That's a lot. That really does shift the battle then. So this way then he can go. Um, if you're okay with that, that's fine. If you're not, well then we need to do better, right? So my 174, if I toss in another thing, because honestly we're at merciless here, and that's pretty much end game material. If you could get enough merciless gear to put on multiple champs, you're pretty much end game. So here I have, let's put this on. So I have a savage set. He's ignoring 25% enemy's defense, and then I have a cruel set to give him more attack, as well as just ignoring that other set of defense as well. In truth, I try to make it as budget as possible, budget realistic. To put it that way, you're not going to be putting your top-notch stuff on him because I don't think he's good by himself. Like him putting berserk on him, you know, okay, cool. You're really wanting this to kick in because you want that berserk, and then you want to go to the A2. So you really need either relentless gear sets, this way he could take that extra turn, or you want him going ridiculously fast. So going back to it, you know, like 228, I don't think that's the greatest, but it's also kind of realistic too. Uh, you know, we have all these champs that are at 400, 405, 450. I haven't seen 500 yet, but I'm sure that there's one out there. 228, okay, cool, man. Awesome. With all the other champs that, you know, we could boost up turn meter and stuff like that, I still think that this is a decent speed. Closer to 300, the better. But it's okay. Like, this is realistic. So, like 5100 attack, that's fine. He's not going to do like a stupid amount of damage, but it's still definitely going to hurt after he attacks. At 29.5, this HP is really low, and I'm definitely going to have to bring him in with a reviver if I did want to have him on a team. And again, like very basic stuff. Like here's a crit damage. Here's a triple attack, which again may not necessarily be the case that everyone has a triple attack ring at your stage, whoever's watching this at whatever time. But I chose the basic stuff, like I merciless slayer, yada yada yada. Like I have things out here, but again, I'm not gonna put my main damage stuff on them. You know, like this is pretty good enough, and I'm okay with it. I I like the idea of him in a turtle only gang, but I just don't see the use out of him by himself. And I'm going to be very hypocritical because I may not see that, but I do want to definitely utilize him if I have him and him alone. I have other damage dealers I could choose from, so that's why he is going to get dusty. But I also want to take the flip side of it is that if you did pull him and you got him, you definitely want to use him. So let's utilize him in that damage component because he does do a lot here. Again, the A3 is pretty big. Once he's fully mastered, we're going to go Helm Smasher because we want him ignoring defense, as much as we can. So we're going to go Deadly Precision for the crit rate, Keen Strike, that's 10%. So like initially I had said 15, and no, it's 10. And then we could do single out. We could heal him because he's going to be really really weak. Or we could do whirlwind of death just to get more speed. And then blood shield eventually is a potential because we want him placing shield at himself for sustainability. Methodical, I think, is an easy one to do because we want more damage out of that A1, especially depending on the team he's in. If he's on an ally attack team, he's going to be using that default skill. So more damage out of that, the better. And that allows us to get to Helm Smasher. Uh, bring it down makes sense. If you're going to be using him basically anywhere with like a glass cannon, you want as much damage out of him as you can. So I think that makes sense. And then potentially Cycle of Violence, just because he can damage some dudes. You know, again, speaking about team composition, if you could get Opportunist going, that's huge. Um, maybe with a Fabian or an Armand ahead of him, where they're going to be stunned. That's big. 12% is pretty big. That's a lot of damage. So this is also an opportunity. You could do Whirlwind of Death to Opportunist, down to Blood Shield, and then down to Helm Smasher, and that could work. He's a barbarian, so there's really not too many revivers in barbarian. Um, they could actually get in a team, so to speak. Um, trying to do things budgetly. Uh, let's work with that. I mean, you get Sill, relatively early, so you could do a Sill, Raph. Um, if you have Valkyrie for the counterattacks, that could work, and an Armand's. That could be a decent one. Uh, Thor would be cool too, just for more damage. Like he's not bad in that kind of setup where he's not necessarily the most relied upon for damage, but just to clean up. I think there's a lot of value there. But if he's strictly your only damage dealer, I think we might be in some trouble. But you know, having that built-in extra turn does help a lot, just because we can get that second hit going, and it could be a big one. Again, ignoring shield and block damage, that's awesome, man. Or increasing the damage to those with shields by 50%. That's neat, man. And again, the critical hit feels are pretty awesome. And he's a 1-3-3 champ, so you're going to be able to cycle through his skills relatively quick. You know, I wish I had the hypocrite counter going, but I don't because I'm not that fancy. But I think he's okay when it comes down to it. Um, he just needs that support, that help. And then I got Cat's Gaze on him because, well, he's going to have lower HP than others. And ignoring 10% of the target's defense, okay, cool, can do. So it definitely helps with that. I mean, any damage, like any damage piece you can get, you're going to want to put on him. I mean, here we have crit damage and attack. I mean, you could put Wand of Submission as an alternative, just for crowd control, reflection. If you're really worried about turn meter, I love the Journal of Nectros. Um, I mean, not for him to wear, but for him to be a part of. Uh, Gore Crescent could also come into play really nicely if you have it. But I mean, these are legendaries. Since he does have Veil, um, not necessarily on that. He's not placing too many debuffs just on himself, so Coronet doesn't make sense. Mm, here's a stun. I you you could do this, the tribute, because you get attack out there. Accuracy doesn't matter. You know, like yeah, I mean it's okay. I would stick with Cat's Gaze. If you don't have it, then mm, mm, maybe just sustainability. Uh, just to have, uh, you know, Golden Elixir has a stats, so that helps. Yeah. Obviously, I didn't go too far into relics with them in preparation, so that's my bad. And there's something on the fly there, but again, I mean, if you're gonna go for that, if you're gonna go for Raphael and you have him, congratulations. If you got him out of a sacred just willy nilly, congratulations. Um, you know, you could definitely lean on to him if you have him and you don't really have anybody else. If he's just filling out a roster spot, that's great. I think he's going to have a lot of use. But for me, at my stage, he doesn't really kick anybody out of my teams. So like I have him, I've had him, I haven't really used him. You could tell I didn't really do anything in the masteries yet. So like he's definitely just hanging out, and I'm doing him a disservice by not leaning into him. But he just, frankly, there's all, there's no room. Uh, there's no room for him on the team. So um, definitely gonna mess around with him when I revisit this and just see how prevalent he can be. But I just think more of PVE more than anything else. Maybe against Ice Golem, could be useful against Hydra. Um, Dragon could work as well. But yeah, definitely, you know, he gets that B plus rating from me only because that block revive. If he didn't have that, like really, maybe I could B minus champ. Because the only thing that's fun with him is that berserk caveat, and it doesn't do enough for me. But those are just my quick thoughts. Um, Tell me where I'm wrong. I please. He's kind of like one of those dudes that I could be definitely wrong about, and yeah, would need some guidance. So hit me up on Twitch, No One My Chomsky, or drop me a comment and let's take things from there. All right. Until then, take care.